Have you ever heard about the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, or about Hurricane Hunter aircraft and know what they do? Director of the National Hurricane Center, Dr. Michael Brennan, tells us more about the work of NOAA and how the National Hurricane Center utilizes the Hurricane Hunter aircraft to collect data.
The National Hurricane Center is part of the United States National Weather Service, which sits under the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So we have responsibility at the Hurricane Center in Miami for forecasting tropical storms and hurricanes all across the North Atlantic Basin and also for the Eastern North Pacific. So we follow storms from before they form. We issue a tropical weather outlook that forecasts how likely systems are to form over the next 7 days. And then when we have an active tropical storm or hurricane, we're issuing a forecast every 6 hours out to 5 days of the track and the intensity and the size of the storm. And we also coordinate with local meteorological services across the region, across the Caribbean, Central America, across the North Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific, providing them that forecast information, and then they issue their own watches and warnings for tropical storm and hurricane conditions for their areas of responsibility.
We have several types of missions. The first one is what we call the low-level investigation, or an INVEST, and we will fly very low, about 500 feet to 1,000 feet, and our primary role at that point is to discover whether or not there is actually circulation there or not, which is very hard to tell from satellite imagery. And if we find something, then our mission will turn into what we call the fixed mission, which is probably what we're best known for. And in the fixed mission, we actually fly an X pattern. So we will, and the reason for that is in order to sample data in all the different quadrants. As you're probably familiar a little bit with tropical systems, it can be very different in, say, the northeast quadrant than the southwest. They're 105 nautical mile legs, so we fly at 10,000 feet, which is right kind of in the middle of the storm. The lower the better as far as the data, but for safety reasons, we tend to go at 10,000. So we actually, when we fly through a storm, we want to have the actual winds off of our left side. So we don't want the winds head on or on our tail. So we kind of crab along at a side angle, and we fly fairly slow. We fly at 180 knots, and that's actually our penetration speed. We have automated observations that are sent out in packages every 10 minutes directly to the Hurricane Center and are releasable to the public almost immediately. And then during that course, we're also dropping instrumentation. We have a dropson. Here is a dropson. We'll put it in this tube. It will be released from the bottom of the airplane, and it goes down to the sea surface and gives us a vertical profile of that atmosphere. We release about 20 in a storm environment, so there's quite a few of these. And then we go through the Eyewall, which is of course where we usually see the max wind speed, and it's a little bumpy. And then we get into the eye, and the job of the meteorologist on board is to direct the crew up front to get to the exact center of where that actual storm is. And from there, we will send another message to the Hurricane Center with more information about what's actually occurring in the storm.
So this aircraft collects a lot of different data at flight level. It collects data on wind speed and direction, temperature, moisture, air pressure, and that data is collected every 30 seconds and sent off the aircraft in blocks of data every 10 minutes. It comes right to the Hurricane Center and gets publicly released to the world.
The actual eye is probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. It's why I keep doing what I'm doing, because it's pretty breathtaking, and a true eye. When you're inside of it, you feel very, very small. You have clouds that go directly up to 55,000 feet, and you're at 10,000 feet, and it's a pretty impressive feeling.
It's really beautiful, actually. When you get into the eye, especially in the daytime, you can get this thing called a stadium effect, where it's just like a big funnel, like a donut almost, you can see all of the swirling clouds around you, but straight through. It's like looking through that hatch. It's just a big cylinder of sky from the surface all the way up, of just calm. So that part's really cool, especially when it's rough, like going into it. You pop out and it's just this beautiful, serene, calm deal.
But it is just what you would think. It's in the actual eye, you get a break from the amount of wind, and it's just a beautiful sight. Kind of take a breather at that point.
And you go back through, and it's the opposite winds that you had coming in the other way.
The Atlantic hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th every year. Forecast for the 2024 season, released by the Colorado State University, anticipate this hurricane season to be an extremely active one. The public is urged to be prepared, stock up on canned and dry goods, get extra medication if possible, and have a go bag ready in case you need to visit one of the hurricane shelters.